Doctor Who's narrated soundtrack range has been another enduring form of memorabilia that holds an affectionate place in the hearts of many fans. Listening to audio stories, whether missing from the archives or not, is a constant reminder of the enjoyment of experiencing their favourite programme. Narrated soundtracks have played an important part in allowing fans to enjoy stories that were unavailable to experience any other way, minus that series novelisation published through Target books. Another equally important reason for the release of these titles comes from the missing episodes of 1960s Doctor Who. The preservation of high-quality audio recordings made by viewers as stories went out during their transmissions has played the most important contribution in ensuring the soundtrack of every story existed. Whilst many 1960s episodes are unavailable to be seen, every single episode can still be heard thanks to these high-quality audio recordings, and have been used for the basis of high-quality audio recordings available now through CDs or streaming. In many cases, these audio recordings are of far greater quality than those from the surviving episodes themselves. Thanks to the hard work of dedicated fans and film enthusiasts, Doctor Who fans are privileged to experience stories with excellent audio quality. These audio recordings have become the basis for reconstructions of missing episodes. On audio, the telling of Doctor Who episodes has allowed listeners, whether they listen to them in the dark or not, to visualise episodes to their own imagination. This investigation uncovers the history of how narrated soundtracks have been an integral part to the merchandising range of the series, and how they have been distributed among fans. Many of these narrated soundtracks have been included in other formats, such as DVDs and Blu-rays, as special features, contributed alongside telesnap reconstructions. Whether you have never listened to a classic Doctor Who narrated TV soundtrack, or a die-hard collector format, this is the perfect guide to the range. Narrated soundtracks of television episodes are forms of audio memorabilia released based on serials of Doctor Who or other TV programmes, by taking the television soundtrack and adding in linking narration by an actor to fill in what is going on visually in the story. They have been assembled from what is evident on screen, or in the case of missing episodes, script details, camera scripts, and production notes. There were various releases of television episodes and audio in the 20th century, before the 1990s saw a batch of episodes being given this treatment to lost stories. From 1999, the BBC had been releasing narrated soundtracks with newly remastered audio of lost but also existing stories. The range dwindled as complete episodes started to be released, probably because fans would watch the TV story instead of listening to a replacement audio version of the serial. Currently, soundtracks exist in physical copies or by streaming them. Soundtracks of episodes were recorded from dedicated fans as episodes went out on television, whether these were made through a microphone or by building the recorder into the TV itself. Varying degrees of audio quality exist for various stories. These have been returned to the BBC throughout the decades thanks to fans who dedicated their cause to maintaining the recovery and preservation of Doctor Who. BBC researchers have instigated into the origin of where the recordings have come from and how they picture the best representation of an episode based on their evidence. To be honest, episodes that have had narrated soundtracks made for them before any episode was returned to the archives have usually had a very close representation depicted of the missing pictures. The very first narrated soundtrack of a story came from the last episode of The Chase, which was released by Century 21 Records. Extra narration was provided by David Graham and was advertised to run for 21 minutes. The recording was titled The Daleks and was released in April 1966. This was a rare exception to experience an episode in an entirely new way, right up until October 1979, with an LP release of Genesis of the Daleks, narrated by Tom Baker. The abridged audio featured Tom Baker in character as the Fourth Doctor. The range officially started in July 1992. The first two releases came with The Macra Terror and The Evil of the Daleks. For many years, audio copies of stories circulated among fan circles, but it was not until the 1990s, when the BBC released copies they were able to acquire for public consumption. The early 1990s audios were successful enough to generate various releases, but the quality was variable. The titles were made available in 2 cassettes and were labelled The Missing Stories. The release of The Macro Terror featured narration by Colin Baker, and the release of The Evil of the Daleks, narrated by Tom Baker, cut 2 scenes set in a coffee bar in which music by The Seekers and The Beatles, heard playing in the background, could not be cleared for use on the audio release. The next audio soundtrack came in June 1993, Tomb of the Cybermen. The release had been prepared in 1991 for a spring 1992 release date, at a time when the serial did not exist in the BBC archives. Following the recovery of the story and the VHS release of the serial in May 1992, the narrated soundtrack was postponed. Due to contractual obligations, the set had to be released, regardless of the fact that the story was no longer missing. The cassette version of the serial, with John Pertwee's linking narration, was finally released in June 1993. The release was not labelled as part of the Missing Stories range, following the series' recovery from Hong Kong. The other 2 releases from the 1993 narrated soundtrack range featured Tom Baker's narration as if the 4th Doctor was in character, remembering past adventures in his second incarnation. In August 1993, BBC Audio released The Power of the Daleks, followed by Fury from the Deep in October 1993. The range was publicised not by the eras of Doctors the stories came from, but by which Doctor narrated the story. Thus, Tom Baker, recognised in the 1990s and even today as the most popular Doctor, received most stories to publicise to fans. More releases in this format would not come about until 1999, when a major discovery was made in uncovering high-quality audio recordings of 1960s missing episodes of Doctor Who. By 1999, the Doctor Who range had been entirely rebranded by BBC Worldwide since the 1996 TV movie. High-quality audio recordings had been recovered in the late 1990s by fans and film enthusiasts who had preserved crystal-clear audio recordings of stories as they were originally transmitted by people such as Graham Strong, Richard Landon, and David Holman. These fans captured the audio quality by building the recorder into their television sets to achieve the best audio quality possible. These audio recordings vary in quality on an episode-by-episode basis, and has been up to Doctor Who audio composer and sound engineer Mark Ayres, a member of the Doctor Who restoration team, to clear up the audio quality for the releases. With the audio in place, the narration was provided usually by a member from BBC Worldwide. Mark Ayres' audio cleanup process used state-of-the-art sound remastering technology to remove hisses, pops, and background noises to provide the best soundtrack possible, using a complicated process of filters and best quality sources of audio. Mark Ayres is an invaluable member to the preservation of remastered Doctor Who. Ayres will continue to improve his work on audio recordings for upcoming home media Doctor Who videos, DVDs, and Blu-rays in subsequent years. The BBC Radio Collection, the BBC's audio publisher, set about releasing Doctor Who narrated soundtracks based on the improved quality masters that turned up from people such as Strong, Holman, and Landon. The first of these new audios would come with The Massacre. It is an unusual story to choose to represent a whole new wave of narrated soundtracks using the crystal clear audio. A more logical suggestion was to release a more popular story, or a story featuring a classic adversary such as the Daleks or Cybermen. This release may have been to prove to fans that if they wanted high quality audio soundtracks of stories, they had to ensure they had purchased a less popular title to ensure they received the more popular ones. Many of the earliest released stories in the new narrated soundtrack range had, up to that point, no other physical media releases beside their novelizations, making their narrated soundtrack range the first presentation of a serial in any medium. Releases were typically narrated by an original member of the cast for the BBC Radio Collection's new range. For The Massacre, Peter Purves provided the narration for the story. The Massacre was released on CD on the 2nd of August 1999. an identically matching cassette was released simultaneously. The cover for this release was made by Black Sheep, who also designed covers for other Doctor Who products around this time. The covers featured for the range, especially in the earliest years, I always found to be mysterious and intriguing, but also slightly frightening images, especially compared with the fact that these are audio releases and allow for listeners to picture a scary image of their minds of Doctor Who at its best. This may also be a case of the slightly cruder nature of the CGI artwork, featuring characters around shadows and galaxy swirls and enhanced images of monsters. The Doctor Who logo featured the chroma dot logo used on all contemporary Doctor Who related products. The CD of the Massacre was released over 2 discs. Sue Cowley was tasked to provide the linking narration and was assisted by members of BBC Worldwide, such as Steve Cole, to guide how she styled the presentation of the narration. Cowley used the original camera scripts and the story's novelisation to help form her narration. The Massacre was confirmed to be the first audio release of BBC Worldwide in February 1999, and Cowley completed her script of the narration in April of that year. The script was sent in May 1999 to the BBC Audio Collection Management for submission for its August release date. The reception to the new audio release was an astounding success, ensuring that the BBC Radio Collection continued their remastered audio CDs of Doctor Who. Already by October, work was well underway for more audios. Fan favourite stories would soon be arriving with astonishingly restored soundtracks to help fill in the gaps of missing episodes, and would quickly begin to become a new form to experience long-lost classic stories. The Web of Fear, other than the novelisation of the serial, had never been commercially released in any format. Released on the 6th of March 2000, this 3-CD disc set had linking narration by Fraser Hines and was written by Sue Cowley and was recorded in 1999. Cowley emphasised the use of telesnaps that existed for the story in helping recreate the Web of Fear through audio-visual narrative. The internal notes that were contained inside the releases, as with all the CDs of this era, describe the cast and credits of the production, who made the linking narration possible, the original production itself, and various information about the BBC Radio Collection and their other genres. Over the course of the next few years, many more incomplete episodes were released under the new aesthetic, usually alternating between the first and second Doctors. The Narrated Soundtrack range was now well underway in completing all the missing adventure stories. Covers were now provided by artist Max Ellis. Stories were narrated by a member who starred in the original story, usually the companion to the story. Peter Purves therefore regularly voiced audio stories for the first Doctor's era, as did Fraser Hines for the second Doctor's era. The August 2000 release of The Map of Terror used the 1992 Colin Baker narration alongside the digitally remastered soundtrack, using a far less detailed narration compared with that of the then recent BBC Radio Collection releases. The April 2001 release of The Celestial Toymaker also removed a racial slur in episode 2 and has remained edited for its public release in all media reconstructions ever since. The BBC Radio Collection was simultaneously re-releasing other Doctor Who audio soundtracks throughout the early 2000s when the Narrated Soundtrack range tackled their most challenging task. The epic 12-parter, The Daleks' Master Plan, was released on the 22nd of October 2001 and featured linking narration by Peter Purves spread across 5 CDs. The release also contained Mission to the Unknown, making this release a hefty 13-episode project to complete. Sue Cowley's extensive narration for all 13 episodes, with 11 of the episodes currently missing to recreate. Mark Ayres from the Doctor Who restoration team provided the crystal clear masters of the audio, removing any pops, hisses and background noises to provide the best work possible using state-of-the-art remastering technology. The surviving episodes 5 and 10 were tackled first, along with the surviving footage available from episodes 1 to 4, for the rest of the serial underwent the remastering process. The work done on the Daleks' master plan was a massive achievement for the BBC Radio Collection, proving by 2001 the range was capable, in producing anything that came to their challenge with astonishing results. This helped the narrated soundtracks to become an official presentation of the serials chosen for audio release by combining stories with contemporary material of when serials were first broadcast. The Enemy of the World, released in August 2002, also contained the BBC One trailer for The Web of Fear, the trailer of which was shown immediately after episode 6 of The Enemy of the World and was kept by a fan on an audio recording of episode 6. The releases were tending to vary between very highly regarded stories alongside less well thought of stories, but Doctor Who's 40th anniversary year featured the release of very well regarded stories alongside box sets containing stories with a linking theme. This represented the vast achievement and work put into these releases to now be compiling their work in box sets for fans to enjoy. Box sets were reissuing earlier BBC Radio collection stories in monster-themed sets, such as the Yeti box set titled Yeti Attack, and a historical-themed collection titled Adventures in History. November 2003 saw the 40th anniversary month of Doctor Who with vast merchandise celebrations. The narrated soundtrack range celebrated this by releasing the earliest missing story, Marco Polo, the fourth ever televised story. The release was split over 3 CDs, and linking narration was provided by William Russell, and also contained a map of Marco Polo's journey across China. The first disc in the set contained data as well as audio. The data included MP3 files of the soundtracks without additional narration, files of the narration scripts, and computer wallpaper versions of the map of Marco Polo's journey. Marco Polo was released by the BBC Radio Collection on the 3rd of November 2003, as was a special box set titled The Daleks. This set featured a 2003 BBC documentary, My Life as a Dalek, alongside 2 newly remastered soundtracks of previously released stories and audio back in the 1990s, now with new narration from Annika Wills and Fraser Hines. The Power of the Daleks and The Evil of the Daleks, 2 of the greatest not only Dalek stories, but Doctor Who stories ever made. The 2003 audio release of The Evil of the Daleks was the first time that all the scenes from all 7 episodes appeared in audio form, following rights issues with music from episode 1, featuring songs from the Seekers and the Beatles played in the background. The soundtrack was carefully filtered in the background to retain the dialogue between characters. The 2 Dalek stories were eventually re-released individually in 2004. The period between 2004 to 2006 saw the last remaining stories that featured missing episodes be released in the BBC Audio's narrated soundtrack format. Even with the existing stories that had most of their episodes complete, tracking down copies of them on VHS was becoming difficult as tapes were being deleted of their availability. Narrated soundtracks of many stories, whether they were existing or not, were the closest official way to watch a story without paying a fortune to track them down on VHS. The February 2004 release of Fury from the Deep was another re-release of a serial originally released in the 1990s that featured new narration from Fraser Hines. In November 2004, another box set was released, this time based around Cybermen stories. Hot on the heels of the success of the Dalek tin set from 2003, this box set contained the exclusive release of The 10th Planet and The Invasion. These titles, much like the stories in the Dalek set, were re-released individually in 2006. The release came packed with various extras, a special bonus disc titled Origins of the Cybermen, written and read by David Banks, the cyber leader of the 1980s serials. Around this time, releases of narrated soundtracks were regularly featuring extras, primarily interviews by the person recording the soundtrack. Actors such as Annika Wills and Fraser Hines recalled their time making the story for each release, and this became a trend for the releases for many years to come. In February 2006, with the release of The Reign of Terror to the range, the objective had been completed to release in the form of narrated soundtracks every single missing episode of Doctor Who. Every single story that was either entirely missing or partially missing had been released under the remastered BBC Audio umbrella format. In order to continue the successful range, the plan was to continue the missing audio range now with narrated soundtracks based on existing stories. as many complete stories were unavailable to purchase for an affordable price on VHS, and many stories had yet to appear on DVD. New narrated soundtracks of existing stories would help keep the range continuing throughout 2006 and beyond. The first under this was a new audio narration by Fraser Hines for The Tomb of the Cybermen, followed by The Ark, with narration by Peter Purvis. Further releases were sure to come, and box sets linking stories together, such as the Monsters on Earth limited edition tin set, continued to sell existing episode titles. Special extras and new interviews with cast who recorded the audio were retained. The Gunfighters, released in 2007, included a 10-minute segment of the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon. The Monster of Peladon, released in early 2008, reinstated a deleted scene from episode 1, and the Romans release in spring 2008 featured radio material looking at the life of Emperor Nero. Stories such as the Peladon serials had their audio remastered simultaneously for their eventual DVD release. The stories chosen for narrated soundtracks typically were serials that were not due for a DVD release anytime soon. The Mind of Evil, released in February 2009, was a story only available in black and white and was not due for a DVD release until a full colorization of the series appeared until 2013, as was The Ambassadors of Death, released the same year, heavily delayed from a DVD release due to color restoration problems. Ambassadors was originally slated for a 2010 release, but was postponed until 2012. This was to be the last release of the narrated soundtracks for some time, as BBC Audio sold much of their company's AUDIOGO, who continued to exploit BBC titles under the new AUDIOGO branding. Although the new AUDIOGO range consisted mainly of a new narrated soundtrack range based on audio readings of the target novelizations, there were still releases to come from the narrated soundtracks. However, many of the older audio titles went out of print and thus were difficult to acquire. As many stories were now available on DVD by 2010, the narrated soundtracks were not redundant, as they were still being enjoyed by fans. Although titles both old and new were becoming out of print, AUDIOGO commenced re-releasing missing narrated soundtrack stories under the Lost TV Collection banner. These were branded under Collections 1 to 5 and ran through from 2010 to 2012. These sets also included the bonus interviews from earlier sets from original cast members alongside new radio documentary programs, as well as PDF material such as camera scripts. The Collection 3 set, released in 2011, issued a new narrated soundtrack of The Macro Terror by Anarchy Wills, as opposed to reissuing the 1992 Colin Baker narration. The box sets would contain several stories that were missing, running in chronological order, and feature a box set showing an image of the TARDIS, and also a different colour background for each set. The 6th release, Collection 6, re-released various complete Hartnell stories in September 2013. Starting in September 2012, a new range of narrated soundtracks were to be released of existing Tom Baker stories. These serials consisted of popular stories from the Graham Williams era of the series, and were the first time new audio soundtracks were provided since 2009. All these new CDs contained bonus interviews with the narrators of the audios, as well as PDF material of the camera scripts. The first came out in September with Horror of Fang Rock, with linking narration by Louise Jameson. The Pirate Planet followed in October with narration by John Leeson. In November, Lala Ward provided a narration for Destiny of the Daleks, as well as City of Death in December. When AUDIOGO went into administration in 2013, many BBC titles went out of print, resulting in these releases, particularly the collection audio box sets, becoming highly prized collector's items worth a small fortune. Although these audio soundtracks were available to download, no more new narrated soundtracks were to be produced for the moment. Rumours suggested that stories such as Planet of Giants and The Web Planet were due for a narrated soundtrack to release at some stage. In 2017, more hope was on the horizon for fans of the narrated soundtrack range, as on the 6th of April, a new box set re-releasing older titles of completed TV stories began. Doctor Who, Classic TV Adventures Collection 1, 7 full-cast BBC TV soundtracks. This box set contained a similar TARDIS image in a coloured background with images of the stories that were included inside the image of the TARDIS. Like with the previous collection CDs, these boxes contained a booklet featuring full cast details, interviews, credits, and production notes. Since 2018, usually as a tradition for Record Store Day, narrated soundtracks have been re-released in vinyl format in limited edition forms. The Tomb of the Cybermen and City of Death were released in 2018, bringing the start of Vinyl Who in deluxe, beautifully created artwork. The Daleks' Master Plan featuring Mission to the Unknown, The Evil of the Daleks, and Destiny of the Daleks soon followed in 2019. The only new story released under the narrated soundtrack range was The Web Planet in December 2019, after years of rumours that this title would join the collection with new linking narration by Maureen O'Brien. As the Vinyl Who range has continued to serve as the narrated soundtrack's future release schedule, the Missing Episodes TV collection box sets have once again been re-released simultaneously. Vinyl Who continued to cover and alternate between missing and existing stories since 2020. The only remaining new story released under the narrated soundtracks range was The Edge of Destruction, released in April 2024 on a single LP with new narration by Carol Ann Ford, alongside a bonus interview from Ford. The Doctor Who narrated soundtracks remain a thriving and marketable range for the franchise. Its impact to the delivery of presenting stories, particularly its importance to the missing episodes, is undeniable for the enjoyment of serials. Much like the series, the range has consistently adapted to keep up to date with its selection of stories, downloadable releases, box sets, and when the resurgence of vinyl took place. Its tense narration and creative imagination of sounds and spaces will continue to delight fans for many more years to come. We must thank those who recorded the stories in audio when they were first transmitted, and for the wonderful presentation of these releases, particularly Mark Ayres' brilliant audio restorations of these stories. Fans will be looking forward to see which stories may get the narrated soundtrack treatment, or to see which previously stories will be released on vinyl to add to the collection of Doctor Who fans.